I'm Cameron, and I don't just read comics, I love them. Welcome back to episode 2 of Hawkeye in our series review. Let's just get into it. I think that as I keep watching this show, again, I said last episode that it feels very familiar, and I still feel that way. I really like the interactions between the characters. Very specifically, it picks up right where Kate and Clint meet. And that being the case, it's that's such an important relationship in the comics and their dynamic and how she sees him. And so picking up right with that, I automatically feel the chemistry between the actors. Their interactions feel very, very special, which is good because I want them to be special. I want them to have chemistry. Anyways. I didn't mention last week, but I think that the Tracksuit Mafia is one of the most interesting pulls, and the way that the MCU and Kevin Feige and everyone is able to make those work, like make concepts like that work, because it's very grounded. It's very I just really like the way that they made some little nod to the comic in that way work. So I love that. I was also confirmed in my belief in this show that when it comes to the MCU in general, I like the street level heroes. And I think that's what draws me into this show, is the fact that they're so street level. They're just wandering around New York. And in episode 2 specifically, I thought that it was you could very just tell how grounded it was. Which is good. The elevation of the show can just be him and her doing really cool tricks with a bow and arrow, and the way that this property can exist in that space and utilize that space, I think is kind of the thing that can set it apart. I was thinking about it as I was watching this episode, which is how recently that this came out and Eternals came out, and how bombastically, just dramatically different both of those properties are. So to be able to see that in this new show, I just thought was so interesting, and how much the Marvel Universe is expanding, and at the same time, just it's I think Eternals expands the universe, and this show kind of really fleshes it out. And I love that balance. That I think that's one of the most important things that the Marvel Universe is doing lately. So I wanted to mention that. Like I said earlier, I really like the relationship between Kate and Clint. I think you can see the foundations. I think, like I said earlier, in the comics, we all know it's an important dynamic that they both have, both being Hawkeye. But I thought that most importantly, like, the way that this show is taking their time with that dynamic, I thought was so cool to be able to visually see that in the show is super cool. So I love that. I love even just the little scene with her and him fixing her bandage that she put on wrong. That's exactly the kind of content that I needed. So I'm glad we saw that. I'm glad that they're going to take their time with this relationship that they know is so important, and everything that they've had together, and all the events leading to their relationship building and their separate lives and coming together. I really like. I don't like that it was pigeonholed. I thought it was so thoughtful how it's all come together, and the way that it also again ties into the bigger universe is so cool. Like this show could not have happened without Endgame happening, and I like that. I like that it's fun to participate, but then it's even like in the universe, it's fun to participate with I'm glad I get to go see Avengers movies, and then I can go watch something like Hawkeye and be rewarded by having seen Endgame. I think that's really important. So to see that in this show and continually see it is very cool. I thought this episode really emphasized Kate's relationship with her now going to be stepfather Jack. Spoiler warning if you don't want to know who Jack is, but I didn't realize that he is going to be one of the villains of this series. I said spoiler warning, so you've been warned. I guess, so I looked it up as I was watching. I always watch these kinds of shows with IMDb up on my computer. So I found out Jack is a villain known as the Swordmaster, I think, or it's the Swordsman. It's Swordsman. So yeah, there's a very vivid scene where, you know what, in the first episode he's trying to get the sword for the Ronin's sword blade that, you know, goes in and out, and then him and Kate both are fencing one another in this series too. So I was like, okay, wow, it's if it's not obvious now that he was going to be someone bigger, then it is. If it wasn't obvious before, it's obvious now. So I like that. I like that. I like the way that the villains, it's almost kind of like a Spider-Man Homecoming, Liz Allen, Vulture kind of familial relationship, and that caught me off guard. And I kind of like those little retcons to make the battles and, you know, the villains a little bit more personal to the heroes. I'm looking forward to watching that relationship grow. It's hard not to think about Kate's relationship with Clint as a positive role model, and then Kate's relationship with Jack, and that disdain there. It's a cool dichotomy coming together. Here's a random thought I had when Hawkeye entered the LARPing thing. I really kind of want him. I want to see the bright purple Hawkeye costume. I think that's, if I was to wish for something in the series, that I think it'd be the perfect kind of little Easter egg that, like, you know, it's a very explicit nod to the comic books. That's very if you catch it, you catch it. I want to see it, but I don't know if we will. I just put that down on my notes because I thought that it could be very good. What I have found with the MCU and their costumes is even the silliest costume they can actually make work, which is, you realize how important it is. So that being the case, I just I want that costume and I want that to work. So I think they could slip it in. If they were able to make something like Vision work, they made the Vulture costume work. We just got a trailer. It's kind of spoilers if you haven't seen the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer. They made Electro work. Like, how? Why? The most wild costume is Electro to me, but if they can make that work, they can definitely make Hawkeye's suit work. And, like, it's cool to see him just, like, with the all black, whatever. But come on, let's get. They just made Wanda, like Scarlet Witch, like the actual costume work. So maybe we can see the next one. Now I'm just ranting. I thought, tying into the live action roleplay scene, I thought that the live action roleplay Hawkeye moment was. It was something I didn't know I needed. We talk about these characters being ground level and it was very much a street level hero. To see, in the same way I think I said last video, he doesn't like musicals. Like, to see him participate and kind of, it's almost a little bit meta, poking fun at the universe in which they exist in. Him being able to go to something like that, as silly as it was, but then there's that piece of dialogue there where the guy says, "You're a superhero. You are a superhero, and this is the closest I'll ever get to being one." Like, that whole scene, it was a grounded moment in a very, I want to say fantastical, but I guess the right word would just be like silly scene. And I can't put my finger on why I loved that so much, so I just wanted to mention that because, dang, it struck close to home. So I'm just glad to see that Clint could have that moment and, you know, be a hero in a different way to someone in the universe. And him not hating the live action roleplay stuff either, I thought was so funny. So I just thought it was very snappy. The comedic and serious balance in this show, I think, should be mentioned too. I think it's just one of those things where they're balancing it really well, because some people criticize Marvel for being too much on the comedic side, but, like, I just think the neat ways they're able to add levity into this series or this universe is necessary, because, man, it can be too much doom and gloom sometimes. So I like that they understand Hawkeye can be that. last two things. I think from what I remember, Kate has always had, from what I remember reading a couple years ago, I think Kate always had a rocky relationship with her mother. And to be able to see her interactions with her mother be doing what they're doing, I thought was so neat. I think that their balance is so cool, and I'm very fascinated by that relationship. And so I'm excited to see it moving forward, and how, you know, the mother-daughter dynamic is going to change, you know. So I really like that relationship, and I'm glad we can see it. I'm glad that they're having, you know, they're butting heads, because Kate and her mom, I just think that relationship is it's integral to the comics. And so that being the case, seeing it reenacted, I guess, so well on the screen was really good. I really liked that. And then I guess the last point I made is, I love Haley Steinfeld's portrayal of Kate Bishop, and what she brings to the character in like the silliness and in all those other things. So Kate falling through the roof and wearing like a new Hawkeye outfit was pretty cool. I really love purple's my favorite color. There's just a random fun fact for you. So seeing her in the original purple, and like I thought it was cool. I just thought the whole scene was cool, and the way it worked out. And she said, I forgot to bring my guns, and kind of where the episode was winding down was really great. So her trying to come in to save Clint was a fun twist. So all of I just thought this was like an overall like very solid episode. But I think this series, unlike some of the others, has just been right up my alley, and I'm familiar with the source material. I'm familiar with the characters moderately, and then just the level of stakes and everything else. I'm like, ooh, I like it. I'm enjoying myself watching the series a lot. So I think I decided after last week, I don't know what I would have rated last week's episode anyways, or episode 1. But for episode 2, I think I'm going to give it like a solid 4 out of 5 stars, because I thought, again, it's so fun. I'm having so much fun watching that, and more than anything, for any time I rate anything, I have like 16 other 10s. 10 out of 10s. I rate things exceptionally high, so take that with you, but this episode, 4 out of 5 for sure, because I just think it is so stinking fun, and I want to broadcast that. So anyways, remember, my name's Cameron. I don't just read comics. I love them, and then sometimes I watch them and do YouTube reviews of them. So make sure to clap with those like and subscribe buttons. And if you have a question about episode 3 that you want me to answer, whatever, if you have any questions about what's going on in the series, make sure you can email me or comment on our on this YouTube, on this Instagram, wherever you find this. Just send me a DM. Cameron Reads Comics for the Instagram. Cameron Reads Comics obviously on YouTube. So leave a comment if you have a question for me. So anyways, see you guys later.